Number 7. Luther Hall. From September to November of 2017, a series of protests took place in St. Louis, Missouri, sparked by the acquittal of former local officer Jason Stockley in the 2011 shooting of 24-year-old Anthony Lamar Smith. As the anti-police violence and racial injustice demonstrations unfolded, several white police officers were involved to varying degrees in the brutal beating of a black man whom they thought had taken part in the protests. However, it would later emerge that the man they'd assaulted was actually an undercover colleague of theirs named Luther Hall. He'd reportedly been attending the demonstrations in plain clothes with the objective of monitoring criminal activity. Hall required multiple surgeries after the beating, the circumstances of which he described to a jury as a free-for-all, adding, "I couldn't believe it was happening." A photo of him with a severely swollen mouth was widely shared online in the aftermath. The beating reportedly left him with permanent damage, as he required spinal fusion surgery to his back, and he ultimately settled a lawsuit against the police for $5 million. 3 of those involved in assaulting the undercover officer, named as Bailey Coletta, Randy Hayes, and David Boone, were banned from working in Missouri law enforcement. Of them, Hayes was sentenced to more than 4 years in prison after pleading guilty to using excessive force in 2019. He admitted to striking Hall with his baton and pushing him to the ground. In 2022, another former officer, Christopher Myers, was given a year of probation after pleading guilty under a deal to a federal misdemeanor charge resulting from him damaging Hall's cell phone in the melee. Number 6. Nicholas D. Krause. In the uptown area of Minneapolis in mid-June of 2021, demonstrators had gathered to protest a recent police shooting. At one point during the gathering, St. Paul man Nicholas Krause drove his SUV into the demonstrating crowd. Witnesses from the scene reported that 35-year-old Krause had accelerated to an estimated 100 miles per hour before he crashed through barriers that had been set up by protesters to block off Lake Street. Minneapolis resident Deona M. Najdek, aged 31, was left in critical condition and later passed away at a hospital after the force of the impact had launched her own car into her body. 3 other demonstrators, whose identities weren't released, were injured. Chaos ensued as a group pulled Krause from the badly damaged vehicle and forcefully detained him, with the altercation captured on cell phone video. As blood streamed from Krause's forehead, he was put in a chokehold and hauled off by a man at the scene, with a number of those present, including the cameraman, remarking upon the delayed police response. The incident reignited the gathering's pre-existing racial tensions, as Krause, a white man, had plowed his vehicle into a group that was protesting the police's treatment of the African American community. After Krause was eventually taken into police custody, his trial date for second-degree intentional murder and associated charges was set for March the 21st of 2022. While there was speculation that he'd driven into the crowd intentionally, the authorities preliminarily found that Krause had been intoxicated and not politically motivated. He admitted to have accelerated as he approached the protesters, but claimed he'd thought himself able to perform a Dukes of Hazzard-style jump over them. Among other illogical assertions made to officers was that his name was Jesus Christ and that he'd been on his way to the Super Bowl. Krause was also driving without a license, which had been suspended due to multiple DWI offenses. Number 5. Mariella Gedge Rogers. In March of 2022, Bristol woman Mariella Gedge Rogers, aged 27, was jailed for 5.5 years following her actions during a Kill the Bill protest held the prior year. Protesters had clashed with law enforcement in Bristol and other areas of the UK as they reacted to a proposed law that gave police new powers to restrict or even ban demonstrations. During Gedge Rogers' trial, cell phones, CCTV, and body cam footage was presented. It showed her repeatedly striking the front window of a Bristol police station with her skateboard, as well as using said skateboard to hit an officer in the head. Gedge Rogers and others were also captured on video while throwing improvised missiles at other officers from the roof of a police station. The woman, who during her legal proceedings expressed remorse for her violent behavior, will be expected to serve half her sentence in custody and the other half on license. Number 4. Emily Ratajkowski. In October of 2018, supermodel Emily Ratajkowski was arrested alongside comedian Amy Schumer as they were protesting the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. The two celebrities were escorted by officers outside the Hart Senate Office building on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and joined over 300 protesters taken into custody by Capitol Police over the course of the demonstration. Ratajkowski later confirmed her arrest on Twitter and shared a photo on the social media platform of her holding up a sign that read, "Respect female existence" or "Expect our resistance." The 27-year-old Ann Schumer, aged 37, had reportedly met while starring alongside each other in the latter's movie I Feel Pretty, and connected over their shared women's rights activism. As footage from the protest began circulating online, a video was shared of Schumer replying with a swift yes upon being cautioned with an imminent arrest by an officer at the scene. The protest against Kavanaugh stemmed from him being accused of assault by multiple women, and one of his objectives was to press the FBI for further investigation into the matter. Number 3. Luka Safronov-Zatravkin. In March of 2022, in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which had commenced on February the 24th, a wave of international sanctions were imposed on the former, as a plethora of anti-war protests erupted all over the world, and Europe dealt with its largest refugee crisis in over 25 years. One Russian citizen staged a one-man protest against the closing of his favorite restaurant. As an increasing number of businesses had ceased their dealings with Russia, the McDonald's Corporation stated an intention of doing the same and announced a temporary suspension of activity for all of its 850 locations in the country. A viral video would show pianist Luka Safronov-Zatravkin, son of famous artist Lukas Safronov, as he protested against the measure by handcuffing himself to the entrance of a McDonald's restaurant in Moscow. He was quoted as saying, "It was my way of life. It was my freedom. They decided that they could limit me." Safronov-Zatravkin was taken into custody by police in riot gear and was reportedly fined, but no update has been made available on his charges. Today's topic was requested by Dove Master, O.O. Suck Madik, Brett O'Neill, and Misty Southard. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Brandy Knightley. On February the 19th of 2022, activist Brandy Knightley was attending a protest in Normandale Park, Portland, organized by the Black Lives Matter movement. 60-year-old Knightley, who was known as T-Rex, had been an activist for decades and was attending the march meant to commemorate Patrick Kimmons, a black man shot and killed by Portland police in 2018, as well as Minneapolis shooting victim Amir Locke. Knightley was a cancer survivor who at the time was using a cane to get around, as she'd been awaiting surgery to have her knee replaced. During the protest, she was caulking, an activity she'd done before and which entailed her blocking traffic along the route to ensure the safe passage of other protesters. As the demonstration progressed, she and her group were approached by 43-year-old machinist Benjamin Jeffrey Smith, who lived across from the park. He began yelling profanities at the demonstrators, demanding that they leave the area. Within minutes, the man brandished a .45 caliber handgun and opened fire on the crowd. A bullet shot at point-blank range hit Knightley in the head, killing her on the spot. At least 4 other people sustained gunshot injuries, one of whom was later reported as being left paralyzed from the neck down. Smith himself was then shot as a male protester, whose identity wasn't released, returned fire. Smith was taken to a hospital in severe condition, in which he remained as of the latest information released to the media. Based on what investigators gathered from the man's online activity, he was opposed to the views held by BLM and had grown frustrated with protests held in his neighborhood. Smith was also part of the internet-entrenched furry community, a subculture that enjoys dressing up as anthropomorphized animals, and his fursona was known as Polybun. He'd allegedly expressed a desire for violent action on furry-associated forums as well. In connection to the shooting, prosecutors have released a warrant for his arrest on charges that included second-degree murder and attempted murder. Number 1. Micah Xavier Johnson. On July the 7th of 2016, protests unfolded in Dallas, Texas, after the successive police killings of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, which had occurred in Louisiana and Minnesota on the 5th and 6th of the month, respectively. What followed during the demonstrations was reported as the deadliest attack on U.S. law enforcement since 2001. It took place on the streets and buildings around El Centro College and was carried out by Army Reserve Afghan war veteran Micah Xavier Johnson, aged 25. After parking his SUV sideways in front of the college's east entrance, Johnson opened fire with a rifle on groups of police officers and protesters who gathered on Main Street. 3 Dallas Police Department officers were killed in the initial shooting, while at least 3 others and a civilian sustained injuries. Nearly a dozen members of law enforcement returned fire but couldn't immediately identify the source of the shots. As Johnson moved north on Lamar Street, he encountered 47-year-old Dallas Area Rapid Transit Officer Brent Thompson, a former enlisted Marine. A video of the encounter was captured by a civilian from a nearby balcony and showed Johnson, who was clad in tactical gear, engaging Thompson in a gunfight. The latter took cover behind a concrete pillar. Johnson fired towards one side of the pillar, misdirecting Thompson and prompting him to return fire on the same side. As the officer did so, Johnson flanked him and shot him from behind multiple times at point-blank range. He wounded 2 more officers while making his way into El Centro College, but eventually came to a dead end on the upper levels as he reached windows looking down on Elm Street. From the vantage point, he shot and killed 55-year-old DPD officer Michael Smith, a former Army Ranger, as he was standing in front of a 7-Eleven. The police sealed off escape routes and a standoff between Johnson and a SWAT team ensued, during which at least 200 gunshots were exchanged. Negotiations failed, with Johnson reportedly claiming he'd only talked to black officers and taunting the police by asking how many of them he'd killed. The authorities ultimately sent a bomb disposal remote control vehicle loaded with 1 pound of C4 explosive. It moved against the wall facing Johnson and detonated, marking the first time that U.S. law enforcement had used a robot to kill a perpetrator. Allegedly enraged by the recent racially charged shootings, Johnson, a black man, had reportedly stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. 5 officers were killed and 9 were injured, along with 2 civilians, in the wake of his rampage. Thanks for watching. What would you make illegal for a day if you had full control over the law in your country or state? Let us know in the comment section below.